The Call of Duty Black Ops 7 beta has concluded, starting on October 2nd and stretching all the way to the 9th for a full consecutive week. Before we dive in, let's check in on where Black Ops 7 and Call of Duty as a series stand at this moment in time. Last time I made a video like this, it was for the Battlefield 6 beta. Now that Battlefield 6 is out and the Black Ops 7 beta has ended, what's the consensus? Well, Battlefield on the Steam charts is ahead of Call of Duty's all-time peak, though Call of Duty has a massive fan base on consoles, so finding an exact measure at this time is difficult, and not to mention that Black Ops 7 hasn't fully launched yet. On this trajectory though, it seems to me that Battlefield might outsell Call of Duty for the second time in its history, the first being in 2016 when Battlefield 1 beat out Infinite Warfare. With Battlefield 6's return to roots approach, Black Ops 7 will have to take drastic measures in order to be able to compete. With things like egregious and ridiculous skins that only belong in Fortnite, strict skill-based matchmaking that has been plaguing the series since 2019, general woke nonsense, and heavy-handed AI-driven censorship, Call of Duty has done a great job at alienating the audience that made it the first-person shooter juggernaut that it's been since at least 2007 with the release of COD 4, if not earlier. Can Treyarch save Black Ops 7 from losing to EA's Battlefield 6? Let's find out together as we break the Call of Duty Black Ops 7 beta down bit by bit. Let's start with the menus. The first thing you'll see upon booting up the game. The first thing I almost always go to is the settings. Upon first glance, there's no MW2 2022 or Battlefield 6 Hulu style UI here, thank God. But that might change with the full release, hopefully not though. As with every Call of Duty in the Warzone era, the settings are actually quite nice and extensive with a massive amount of options for anything and everything related to audio, video, gameplay, and controls. I'll just briefly talk about the more significant ones. Firstly, we have some pretty modest aim assist settings. I know even the mention of controller aim assist has the incredible ability to send keyboard and mouse players into a nuclear level cope session, but maybe it's time to admit that your preferred input device doesn't mean you're going to automatically win, and you still have to be able to hit your shots. Treyarch games in particular have much more minor aim assist than Infinity Ward or some Sledgehammer games, so anyone still complaining about nerfing aim assist might have to reconcile with their own skill issue at this point. You know, I'm old enough to remember the constant talk from the supposed PC master race back in the PS3 360 era, which claimed that the main reason crossplay wasn't a thing is that all controller players would be destroyed and would stop playing. Fast forward to crossplay being the norm, and it's often the other way around. My personal view is that there are pros and cons to each input device, and you should just use what you like most. As someone who strongly prefers controllers in console gaming, I don't feel like I necessarily need aim assist, but it's been so prevalent in Call of Duty that playing without it might feel weird. If it's ever removed, I'm sure I'll adapt just fine. Black Ops 7 also offers mantle and crouch assist settings, which I don't think I've seen before, but they're supposed to help you mantle over hurdles and crouch into crawl spaces automatically. I want more manual control, so I didn't use these, but they're interesting and probably good for casual players or kids. You can also turn corner slicing on and off, which is something introduced in Black Ops 6 where your gun would tilt when approaching a corner. I hated this in BO6 because I thought it felt kind of nauseating, but it was a bit smoother here, so I actually left it on. We also have assists for wall jumping and active rolling, but we'll touch more on those in a bit. For now, let's talk about the maps and modes. The beta started with core and hardcore mosh pit playlists spanning 3 maps and 4 modes, and as the week went on, new maps and modes were introduced. Most significantly was the exclusion of strict skill-based matchmaking, or more accurately known as engagement-optimized matchmaking. Here, let me explain. Skill-based matchmaking would make every match pretty even and consistent by matching players with other players of similar skill level. Anyone who's played Call of Duty enough in the Warzone era will know that's not the case. Engagement-optimized matchmaking is a predatory casino tactic that is meant to keep players addicted by psychologically abusing your dopamine. When I went to college for game design, we had an entire course on how to implement this. And working in the industry, it became apparent very quickly that the board of boomers in suits who don't game and don't know anything about it other than how to ruin our hobby care about their monthly active user statistic above all else. So what facilitates a high MAU count? Things like EOMM and FOMO tactics like daily and weekly challenges for missable rewards, events, battle passes, etc. And it's all designed to make you feel invested, obligated, and enslaved to your purchase. You are being used to prop up their stock price for an entire year, and you're paying them $70 at a minimum for the privilege. Let me see if this sounds familiar to you. You load up COD with the boys, you have somewhere between 3 to 5 good games in a row where you do well and have a good time. Then you have another 3 to 5 games in a row where you get absolutely stomped, and then the cycle repeats. That's not SBMM, that's EOMM. This system is meant to manipulate you by engineering your highs and lows, and they have an immense amount of player data to know precisely how much abuse you can take before you rage quit and turn off the game. So they stop the bleeding just before that and give you an easy match. Absolutely nobody should defend this. With that said, the playlist without EOMM felt really good and really reminiscent of classic COD. There were still some people I saw on Twitter complaining, but I genuinely feel like this was a skill issue. With EOMM on, it was hard to tell where you stand on a skill basis in public matches. Without it, the wheat separates from the chaff pretty quickly, and it wasn't uncommon for me to get 60 kills or more in a match with it removed. Throughout the beta, we got 6 modes total: Team Deathmatch, Kill Confirm, Domination, Hardpoint, Search and Destroy, and a new one, Overload. If you've played Call of Duty since like 2012, you should be familiar with all the other 5 modes, so I won't delve into them here, but we will talk about Overload. Overload I felt was very underwhelming. It was basically an over-designed one flag capture the flag where you had 2 gold points, both in the enemy spawn. There's really not a ton to say about it other than I'd rather just have standard 1 flag and 2 flag CTF. For the other modes, I'll just quickly say that TDM was very campy and I avoided it when possible. Kill Confirm, Domination, and Search all played well, as you'd probably expect, and I've never really liked Hardpoint before, but it was somehow my favorite mode in the beta. The points the designers chose and letting us know where the next Hardpoint would be made it feel great. As for the maps, we got 6 total, all of which, to my knowledge, are new and unique to BO7. This included Cortex, Toshin, Blackheart, The Forge, Exposure, and Imprint. Cortex is one of the smaller maps, and I really love this map overall. My only real complaint is that there were a ton of head glitch spots, especially along the catwalk side. There were several points at which the 3 lanes intersected. You can pull off some great flanking routes here. Toshin is kind of a weird map. I don't quite know what to think of this one. It had a lot of verticality compared to the others, but I felt it didn't flow well. Its main feature is a bus or a train car, I couldn't really tell, in the center that had a window on each side. In order to run up to them, you'd have to be out in the open, constantly exposing yourself to anyone camping inside. There were also a ton of little hideaways and corners and elevator shafts and air vents that just didn't really feel great to traverse. I wouldn't say I hated this map, but I also didn't particularly love it. Blackheart is the other smaller map. Its main feature is some sort of spinning centrifuge in the center that you could traverse through or wall jump around. I generally like this map, but the head glitching on the 2 side lanes was annoying. One side allowed you to get around by going through a catwalk with some cover, while the other side was wide open and forced you to wall jump to get across out in the open. I think if that lane was changed, this map would be a lot better. The Forge was a great medium-sized map. It had a little bit of verticality to it and the perfect amount of cover. No weird vents or shafts here. The only spot on this map I didn't love was the room with all the desktop computers. It was very common to try to come through a door here and get blasted by somebody head glitching or straight up shooting you through it all. Otherwise, this map played very well, and the spinning walls in the center made for some very interesting engagements and complexity when playing Dom, as that's where the B flag would spawn. Exposure is a map that we would constantly back out on if it came up. I think it's actually a well-made map, but it doesn't flow well, and I think that if it were played with some sort of 10v10 mode, it would be quite solid. The center lane had the most complex cover by far, in a good way. The main feature of the map was a spinning shipping container that you could only really get into by wall jumping. It looked cool, but it seemed impractical, so I never felt the need to actually use it. And honestly, I rarely saw anyone else using it either. The lane with the solar panels had a long sight line, which is fine, but very little cover overall. The other lane was head glitches and hiding around the corner on both sides. This map needs a few changes, but it has a lot of potential in my opinion. And finally, we have Imprint. This map is okay, but not awesome. The main feature is the lift in the center that goes up and down at the push of a button on either side. The gap is pretty wide, so wall jumping here is hard. It almost feels too big, like it was meant for Black Ops 3 style wall running instead. The B flag in Dom is on the lift, and so is one of the bomb sites in Search. And it can be super funny to fuck someone out at defusing because you basically made the bomb run away from them. One lane is a wall jump that leads to both the middle lane and the other side of the lane it's on, and there's a room and head glitch on the catwalk on that same side. It wasn't too much of a distance between one point to the other though, so pushing through wasn't that bad. The other side lane is a room and a lower head glitch spot on one side next to a ladder that leads to the middle lane, while the other side has an upper area without a head glitch spot and a lower spot without much of a sight line behind cover. This is the lower area that the lift can go to, and so it's wide open to be shot at from an elevated middle lane. There needs to be something more here. It feels too empty and one-sided in my opinion. Let's get into the game UI and UX during gameplay. The UI overall is quite nice. I didn't have a lot of complaints about it. My biggest issue is definitely the various lethal and tactical reticles. Many of them seem big, messy, and overly busy for no discernible reason. The area that shows your streaks is nice, and I really like that it shows both a meter of how much you have left until you get it, and also it has the number of score remaining. and when you get a UAV or scout pulse, it shows the time remaining until it finishes. This is a nice touch, and I'm surprised we didn't get it sooner. I also noticed the hipfire reticles could sometimes be odd. Sometimes there was a plus in the middle instead of a dot, and sometimes there was just a dot. The hash marks that indicate your hipfire spread didn't feel as clearly linked with your firing mode like full auto burst and semi-auto as some of the past games did. There was also a frequent bug where it wouldn't properly display the streak section of your UI in hardcore. It would look empty when it wasn't, or just simply not show the third streak icon. Other than that, there's very little to complain about. Let's talk about the audio a bit. Firstly, the music in the main menu is awesome, especially since they remade the famous Adrenaline theme from Black Ops 2's multiplayer menu. Adrenaline 2025 goes pretty hard, and that's what you're hearing right now. There are a few other themes here, and they're good as well. The sound effects are decent overall. I've always found Infinity Ward to have the best audio by far between the three major COD studios. The footsteps are pretty quiet by default. I like them a little louder, but I know I'm in the minority there, so most of you will be happy with that. The JSOC announcer, which never calls the faction JSOC, and instead opts to call them Black Ops, is this super annoying bitch who is not only a bad choice as an announcer, but she sounds like she really phoned in her voice work too.
Hardcore team deathmatch. Destroy those guild a-holes.
The guild has 2 or 3 announcers, and they're substantially better than JSOC's.
Hardcore team deathmatch. Eliminate all unauthorized personnel.
And finally, the gun sounds are better than your average Treyarch game, but not exactly awesome in any particular way, just decent. I played this game on Xbox Series X with a 120 FOV. I didn't have any performance or technical issues at all. I did have some stuttering connection at times before the playlists without EOMM were introduced though. I didn't use the FX Fidelity CAS setting, which is supposed to sharpen the image. It looked very clean without it, which is something I can't say about MW2 2022 or MW3 2023, which are both brimming with constant blur and visual artifacts. BO7 had none of that, so that's great. Okay, so let's talk about the movement. Omni movement from Black Ops 6 makes a return. It feels like it got a bit of a tune-up here, and it feels better than it did before. I overall like Omni movement as a mechanic. I don't feel like it's something I'm forced to use, just another option in my toolset. I do really like how Omni movement lets you shoot while prone in a way that prevents slow turning and prone blocking. Though sometimes I'll run up on someone laying on their back or side and get killed because I thought they were a dead body. I think that's more of a user error than a lack of conveyance though, so if you also had that issue, it should improve as you play more. There's also diving and sliding which feel good, and the ability to dive with Omni movement screws over those who like to drop shot, so that's good news to you if that's something that you hate. I was surprised to see movement while weapon mounting make a return from Vanguard here, though it feels a bit smoother than it did before. Tac sprinting, introduced in Modern Warfare 2019, has been a controversial design decision for a while now, and that's no longer a thing by default. You have to have a perk to use it, but more on that in the perk section. Now the thing here that's totally new is wall jumping. We had this to an extent in Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare, but now we have it without wall running. When I first heard they were doing this, I let out a big disappointed sigh because I generally dislike the advanced movement COD games. But I have to admit, it feels really good. It feels quick, seamless, and surprisingly grounded. I think Treyarch deserves a lot of credit for that. Lastly, there's also a combat role that's supposed to help you avoid fall damage, and there's even a setting to make you do it automatically. I didn't fall from any height that seemed to warrant it, and I never saw anyone else do it either, but I'm really interested to see how it turns out. The class system here is pretty typical. It's not using pick 10, thank God. That's a system that I was originally hyped for, but to me it sounds much better on paper than in practice. Here you get a primary and secondary with 5 or 8 attachments, a dedicated melee weapon like Modern Warfare Remastered, a lethal and tactical, 3 perks, a wild card, and a specialty. Nice, clean, simple, classic. I have no complaints about this whatsoever. Before we get into the finer details about classes, you're going to have to choose who to play as. We have 8 operators to choose from during this beta. On the JSOC side, we have David Mason, who looks kinda Hispanic for some reason. Next we have Vermaak, who is who I chose. I can't quite place his weird accent. New Zealand maybe? I didn't see any character bios in the beta, so I'm not sure. Next we have 50/50, who looks like the love child of Abby from The Last of Us and The Predator. Hard pass. And finally for the JSOC we have Wei Lin, who isn't particularly egregious, but female operators don't belong in COD, so it's a no from me. For the guild we have Kagan, who the announcers mentioned, so I think she's the boss of the guild or whatever. This bitch has the same chin as Gutsman from Mega Man. Pass. Next up is Faulkner, who is my favorite, even if he is a dirty European. Reaching max level in the early access beta gave you a cool skin for him. I wish more operators in the game looked like this. Next up is Gerardo. This dude and his man bun cringe me out, and I don't even want to look at him. Pass. And finally we have Zaveri, who looks like Farah from Modern Warfare's ugly cousin doing a bad Black Ops 3 Outrider cosplay. Pass. Now that the operators are done, let's go over to the perks. There are a lot of them, likely the full list of them. A lot of these aren't new, so I'll go over them quickly. Let's start with the perk 1 category. Scavenger resupplies ammo and equipment from killed enemies. I didn't get to test this as I used Ghost almost the entire time, but if it works like it did in Black Ops 2 where bullet melee kills drop scavenger bags that replenish ammo, grenades, and rockets, that would be amazing. Lightweight increases movement speed and allows you to jump, slide, and dive further. It also gives you faster recovery from sliding and diving. This is what I used if I wasn't running Ghost. I wonder if this allows you to have an easier time crossing the lift gap on Instinct. Gung Ho allows you to fire while sprinting and increases your movement speed while reloading and throwing equipment. Sounds nice, but it didn't always have your gun up in a ready state like it did in the past, so it didn't seem nearly as useful. I hope they change that. Cold-Blooded works as expected, where it hides you from thermals and kill streaks. Ghost kept you hidden from the radar while moving, capturing objectives, controlling streaks, and planting or defusing bombs. It also mentions a proximity alarm, but that wasn't in the beta. It's pretty controversial, but I don't really love Ghost only working while moving. At least this game felt great to run around in. I noticed though that unlike in past games, your icon on the minimap doesn't fade when Ghost is active. I hope that's a bug or oversight and they change that. Ninja allows you to move more quietly. It says more quietly as opposed to silently, so I can't really say what that audio threshold is. Tech Mask is basically Tac Mask from Black Ops 1. It makes you resistant to enemy flash, stun, and gas, and also prevents against EMPs and hacking. Flak Jacket helps you guard against explosive damage. Oddly, it seems to be the only perk that shows a piece of gear rather than just an icon, and it was a common bug for it to be locked for no reason. Shadow makes you undetectable to enemy traps and mines. And now for the perk 2s. Assassin marks enemies on a streak on the mini-map and allows you to collect bags they drop for additional score. This is a good perk if you get your fun by ruining other people's fun. Close Shave allowed you to one-hit melee by using your dedicated melee instead of your gun. I played maybe 70% of the beta in the hardcore playlist, so I didn't have a need for this perk. Hunter's Instinct marks the direction of your next closest enemy on your minimap after a kill. I never use this, but it sounds like it's brutal in Search, and I hope there's a counter to it. Looper basically enables wrapping score streaks. I hate this because I think wrapping streaks should just be a mechanic by default like it was in the past. Vigilance displays an icon when you appear on hostile minimaps and makes you immune to Counter UAV, Scrambler, and Vendetta. I don't find this perk particularly useful so far. Blast Link paints enemies on the minimap when they're hurt by explosive damage, so it's basically recon from MW3. It also gives you score when allies deal damage with explosives. Engineer allows you to see enemy explosives, equipment, and streaks through walls. It says that aiming at them reveals information, but I'm not sure what that means. A health bar maybe? Does this game not already do that by default? And if not, it should. Fast Hands allows you to reload and swap weapons faster and also reset fuses on thrown back grenades. This is the perk 2 I use the most because I ran the overkill wildcard a lot, and I also didn't notice a difference in reload speed whatsoever. Gearhead allows you to have 2 field upgrade charges and allows you to booby trap enemy care packages. Care packages weren't in the beta, but it's odd that this ability isn't granted to Engineer. That does it for the perk 2s. Let's move on to the perk 3s. Dexterity reduces weapon motion and gives you full ADS on slides, dives, and wall jumps while also allowing you to take less damage. This seems useful, but I never felt like I needed it. Tac Sprinter enables Tac Sprint, but makes regular sprint slower. That drawback totally ruins the perk, and I'd rather just not have it if that's the case. Bankroll starts you with 150 score towards score streaks. I use this constantly, and it meant that it only took a single kill to get a scout pulse. Bruiser allows melee kills and executions to replenish health and earn extra score. Tracker allows you to see footsteps, auto-ping enemies by aiming at them, and shows their rough locations on your minimap. This is certainly the best tracker has ever been. Vendetta marks your killer's last known location and gives you bonus score for taking them down. This is basically the revenge death streak from MW3. Quartermaster recharges equipment over time. It doesn't say how long though, and when trying to use this, I found that it took way too long for it to be useful. Charge Link lets your field upgrades charge faster, and it grants this to all teammates. You earn score when teammates use their field upgrades too. This perk is really great. And finally we have Guardian, which grants faster healing when capturing and holding objectives. It also lets you revive teammates faster. Now, I wonder if that last part is just for Warzone, or if BO7 will have Cyber Attack or some other mode like that. Huge shout out to Cyber Attack, by the way, introduced in Modern Warfare 2019. I absolutely love that mode. That does it for the perks themselves, but by now I'm sure you've noticed that the perks in each tier have one of 3 different colors. Those colors correspond to various specialties. There are 2 types of specialties, core and hybrid, and you might also notice that little disclaimer down there about perk greed, but we'll get to that later when we cover the wildcards. Core is when you have all 3 perks the same color, and hybrid only requires 2 of the same color. For the red ones, we have the Enforcer core specialty, which is gaining a buff to movement speed and health regen speed for a short time. For blue, we have Recon. On respawn, see the direction of the closest enemy on the minimap. The edge of your HUD pulses for enemies outside your view, and you also don't leave death markers. For green, we have strategist. Increase score for objectives and sabotage. Deploy equipment faster and see enemy content through walls for a short distance. Green and red make tactician, which allow you to earn bonus scores from bullet damage for 10 seconds after getting an assist. Red and blue make scout, which allows you to stay hidden from UAV for 5 seconds after a bullet kill, and it resets the timer every time you get one. Blue and green make operative, which allows you to earn your field upgrade faster from kills with suppressed weapons, melee, and out-of-sight kills. I have mixed feelings on their specialties. I find them kind of messy, and I don't like that they sometimes have overlap with base perks like recon and strategist. And now we get to the field upgrades. Before I dive in, I have to explain overclocks. The field upgrades, lethals, tacticals, and Scorestreaks have something called overclocks. They're abilities that can be equipped, and they're unlocked by using whatever you're trying to overclock. In the beta, there are 2 overclocks per eligible item, and only one can be equipped at a time. They have to be leveled from level 1 to 3 in order to get all of them. The items that have overclocks don't explicitly tell you how to level them, so there were times where the leveling was unclear, and as a result, extremely slow. With that said, let's go over the field upgrades and their overclocks. First, we have the Assault Pack, which provides ammo and grenades to yourself and teammates. Its overclocks include a faster charge rate and additional score and kills, essentially turning it into its Cold War version. This took forever to level because it wasn't clear exactly what counted as progress. Was it kills with the extra ammo or equipment? No. It turns out it levels by being taken by teammates. So every time I dropped a pack, I had to ping it and yell at my teammates to use it. Requiring teammates to level something in a Call of Duty game where considering team play as secondary would be generous, this is pretty annoying. Next we have the drone pod. You lay it on the ground and it launches 3 aerial drones that seek out enemies and explode. These were fucking everywhere. In core, they would deal 60 damage, but in hardcore, they were an instant kill. This is a field upgrade that you could argue should be tuned into a score streak instead. Its overclocks were faster and showing the drone's destination on the minimap, the latter of which I didn't get to see because I was playing hardcore at the time I was using it since it got kills more reliably there. Next up is the trophy system, and it's worked the same way it always has by neutralizing explosives. Its overclocks are faster charge time and more ammunition. Active camo is the next one, and this is pretty cool. Activate this to become nearly invisible for a short time. Shooting will uncloak you. The overclocks are faster charge time, which I think is needed because its default rate is very slow, and the other overclock allows you to recloak once after shooting, which is also quite solid. Next up is the Echo Unit, which is a holographic decoy that can also capture and hold objectives. It's by far the best field upgrade of its kind in the series. The overclocks allow you to charge it faster or have it stun enemies when they come close to it. And finally we have the Squad Link, which is really good and pairs very well with the Charge Link perk. It provides extra score to operators in its vicinity. It also boasts extra effectiveness for operators and equipment, but I'm unsure what that means exactly. The overclocks increase your area of effect, and the other both increases your and allied field upgrade charge speed, as well as giving everyone even more score in its vicinity. The standard AoE is already pretty big, so I don't see any real reason to choose the first overclock over the second. Let's take a look at the tactical offerings. First off, we have the stun grenade. Its overclocks are longer stun and slowing move speed of stunned players. I don't understand. Isn't slowing the move and turn speed of the effective player kind of the whole point of the stun in the first place? When they take this kind of approach, it makes it seem like they're cutting standard capability in order to repackage it as an additional unlock, and I generally find that to be a dishonest way to design your game. If this is indeed the case, it makes sense why I felt the stun was so ineffective throughout my time with the beta. To level the overclock, it doesn't explicitly tell you, but I'm pretty sure it's to kill enemies you've stunned, which is a pain considering they're so damn weak, so this took way longer than it should have. Next up is the EMP grenade, and its overclocks are increased disruption radius and the ability to cook it to be a 9-bang, kind of like the one from Ghosts minus the flash ability. The EMP grenade is actually really good, and the effect seemed like it lasted quite a long time. There was a lot of scout pulse and UAV spam in the beta, of which I'm guilty of doing myself, so jamming their HUD and radar with these worked very well for the times I wasn't running Ghost. I leveled this thing up very quickly, so I'm not sure if you just need to hit players with it or if you actually have to kill them while they're effective. Now we have the flashbang. Its overclocks are a wider angle, which makes it harder to avoid by looking away, and the ability to cook it for more detonations. How many detonations? The NP says 9, but this doesn't list a number. And I also wouldn't know because despite using the flashbang for the majority of the beta, I still didn't get it to the level 3 overclock. I must have thrown a billion of these, but they wouldn't level at any reasonable rate. And as a result, I got annoyed and switched to other tacticals on the last day of the beta. I didn't get to use most of the other tactical overclocks because this thing would just not budge. Next is the pinpoint grenade. This works like the EMD grenade from MW3 2023, where being hit by it will stick a tracker to you that you'll have to manually pull off. Except that this time, The pinpoint grenade will stay on the ground for a few seconds and shoot a tracker onto anyone who steps into its area of effect. Its first overclock gives a longer lifetime in AoE. The second makes it so trackers work for allies as well. I didn't get to test either of these overclocks due to the stuns and flashbangs taking so much time. Now we have the stim shot. This will heal you very quickly once used. Its overclocks remove player debuffs, which I assume mean things like your flash and stun status, and the other overclock adds a speed boost. In the CODs where you have tac sprinting or limited sprint by default, these would refresh your sprint as well. Since BO7 has unlimited standard sprint by default, I guess they felt a straight up movement speed boost made the most sense, and I guess it does, though I'm conflicted about it being locked behind an overclock level. And lastly, we have the Psych Grenade. This thing is pretty cool. It's essentially a gas grenade that causes the affected player to hallucinate. You'll see enemies that aren't real and will explode into red mist when you shoot them. The overclocks increase the duration of the effect and enabling the gas to deal damage over time. Now that the tacticals are taken care of, let's check out the lethals. I had a similar issue here where these took way too long to level their overclocks, so I didn't get to use all of them. Let's start with the frag grenade. Its overclocks increase lethality and give you a throwing arc. I'm surprised the latter isn't tied to a perk, but I'm also happy that the arc actually works in hardcore. Though regardless of mode, the throwing arc is a semi-translucent white and it's kind of hard to see. Next we have the Semtex. Its overclocks improve lethality and allow cooking. There's nothing really special to say about the Semtex except that I didn't notice an improvement at all with the increased lethality overclock. The same could be said for the frag. Explosives in this game seem very weak overall, even in hardcore, which is kind of crazy. I used the cluster grenade for the majority of the beta. It looked cool, but no matter what I tried, it sucked hard. I couldn't even get it to level 2. This piece of shit prevented me from unlocking other lethal overclocks. The cluster's overclocks add the ability to cook and give it one extra mini grenade. I didn't get to use either of these, but I'm not convinced either one of them would make this thing not suck ass. Now we have the best lethal by far, the Combat Axe, otherwise known as the classic Black Ops Tomahawk. Why is this the best lethal? Well, it's the only one that seems to be able to kill anyone consistently, and that's a problem. Its overclocks give it a faster raise speed and further throwing distance and travel speed. Next up is the Point Turret, which is the game's full auto pistol on a tripod that acts as a mini sentry gun. This thing is very cool, but it's terrible outside of zombies. Even in hardcore, you could let it shoot you a million times and it did essentially nothing. Its overclocks are a rate of fire increase and the ability to place it on walls and ceilings. I don't think anyone got this thing leveled because I never saw anyone place it on anything other than the floor. And lastly, we have the Needle Drone, which works like the MW3 2023 Breacher drone, but with the added ability to pilot it manually. While super cool, it moves and turns very slowly and doesn't feel worth using outside of trolling purposes. Its overclocks allow its explosion to become more lethal and an added boost ability in manual flight mode. The boost is probably nice for the speed issue, but it doesn't help the turn speed, which I think is the bigger problem. Let's get into the wildcards. So far in this beta, we got 3 of them, and they were solid, albeit modest. Firstly, we have Overkill, and it's not just 2 primary weapons this time around. Now it unlocks the slot completely so you can put any weapon in either slot, like a handgun for your primary and a launcher secondary. I ran Overkill a lot simply because the choice of secondaries was quite low with only 2 handguns and 1 launcher. Next up is Gunfighter. This allows you to select 8 attachments on your primary weapon as opposed to the standard 5. I do wish it worked for secondaries too, but maybe that's asking for too much. I use Gunfighter often when leveling primaries before I finish the 2 handguns. And lastly, we have Perk Greed, which allows you to select an additional perk from any slot. Do you remember that disclaimer about Perk Greed when looking at perk specialties? Well, it claims that Perk Greed doesn't affect specialties, but that's not really true. Okay, let's say you have Ghost, which is blue, Fast Hands, which is green, and Bankroll, which is red. Well, there's no combo there, so there won't be a specialty. Now, what if I add Perk Greed? Well, in this way, if I choose a perk with the Perk Greed wildcard, still no specialty pops up. But if I swap out Ghost with, say, Flak Jacket, which is green, it'll give me the Tactician specialty. Now all I have to do is make my Perk Greed perk Ghost, and bam. Now I have the 4 perks I was going to choose anyway, and I got the specialty on top of it. Why even create this limit when it's so easy to get around? It feels like an oversight they'll either correct, or they'll drop the restriction entirely and stop wasting my fucking time. Let's delve into the Scorestreaks. This game uses the Scorestreak system that Treyarch has been using since Black Ops 2 in 2012. Thankfully, they're not that weird cooldown system from Cold War, but just classic Scorestreaks as they were always intended to be. So first up is the Scout Pulse for 350 score. Its overclocks granted a lower score cost and directional arrows instead of dots on the minimap. I used the Scout Pulse for every game that I played, and I must have called it in a trillion times, and it never leveled up to the final overclock. Of all the streaks, this is the only one that I didn't max out. I ran the lower score cost overclock with Bankroll, guaranteeing I'd essentially always have one, which felt nice. Next is the RCXD for 400 score. Its overclocks increase resistance to enemy gunfire and show target indicators of enemies through walls at medium range. Both of these overclocks are good, and the former even feels necessary, as the RCXD in this game is both very easy to destroy and controls like absolute fucking dog shit. It is beyond me how they botched the controls so badly. The best version of this streak is the Scarab from Infinite Warfare. Say what you will about that game, if you've even played it, but that is the highest bar set for this type of streak so far, and that was 9 years ago. Now we have the UAV for 500 score. Its overclocks include a lower score cost and more durability to damage and lock-on launchers. I use the lower score cost as most COD players don't care about killing streaks, but the additional durability made a noticeable difference if you tried shooting them down consistently. The beta didn't have a lock-on launcher, so I can't speak on that. For 525 score, we get the Skewer, which is a type of missile that comes down from the sky, automatically tracks the target, and uses blades to turn them into hamburger meat. I would say that they hit someone about 50% of the time. The overclocks gave it increased velocity and the ability to target higher priority enemies. What does higher priority mean in this context? Does it mean players who were on a streak? Players the game determined were your nemesis? The highest player on the enemy scoreboard? No idea. Next, we have the counter UAV for 600. I feel like I'm on fucking Jeopardy with these score streaks. I'll take the counter UAV for 600, Alex. Yeah, fuck off. The overclocks give it a lower score cost and more resilience, same as the standard UAV. Now we have the controversial Gravemaker for 950, which is a charged sniper that can see and shoot through walls. I got accused of hacking a couple of times in the game and text chat by a few retards who must not have known about it. I'm a big fan. I think this thing is pretty sick. I'm pretty sure Cold-Blooded keeps you hidden from it, and there's a noise that plays while you're being aimed at, but being a beta, I didn't exactly get to test that. The overclocks give you more ammo and let you charge faster. It already charges at a reasonable rate in my opinion, so I opted for the extra ammo. You can also weapon inspect it, which is cool. Next we have the Dog, as in DAWG. For 1,000. Deployable Armored Weaponized Groundcraft. Its overclocks gave it extra duration and the ability to stay in place in sentry mode while deploying an assault pack and a trophy system. This thing was pretty cool. It would climb up walls and jump through windows chasing people, but it took a second to actually shoot you, so it was pretty avoidable. I only used its second overclock once and it got wrecked instantly, so I never used it like that again. For 1050, we get the Watchdog Helo. It patrols around shooting and pinging targets. Its overclocks make it more durable and give it the ability to guard a specific area. The latter worked quite well for spawn trapping on domination. For 1150, we get the HKDS, which work like the Raps from Black Ops 3. A whole swarm of them is released and they run up to you on their two wheels and blow up in your face. They even jump into windows and over objects, including each other. The overclocks give them increased durability or allow you to simply have more of them. I'd get more kills with the latter. For 1300, we get the Rhino, which is a controllable mech with a burst-fire minigun that drops from the sky like a Titan in Titanfall. While using it, your character is safely cloaked until you're finished. You control it in third person, and in hardcore, it doesn't provide any kind of reticle, so aiming doesn't feel as precise as it should, but it was still very awesome to use. Its overclocks granted extended runtime or a minimap sonar pulse, the latter of which doesn't work in hardcore. This thing is a beast. Something I should also mention is as you're being shot while using it, smoke will kind of get in the way of your ability to aim, and that's kind of annoying. And finally, for 1350, we get the VTOL Warship. This thing has big autocannons and missiles that lock onto players. You can also move it around as you please. The overclocks increase durability and give you an engine boost to break enemy missile locking, though the latter was useless in a beta that was devoid of any lock-on launchers. Okay, it's time for my favorite part. Let's talk about the weapons, attachments, and gunsmith system. To get the dedicated melee weapon out of the way, we have the Flatline Mark II, which is an ugly shock baton. I don't really like using melee weapons in shooters, so I don't really care about this at all. I'm glad it has a dedicated slot though, because I'd never choose one over a trusty sidearm. Switching to your pistol is faster than reloading after all. Next, we only have 3 options for secondaries, so we'll talk about them first. The first handgun is the Jaeger 45, which is the TAC 45 from Black Ops 2. I hated that gun in Black Ops 2. It had a very odd way of recoiling. Here though, I absolutely loved it. It really shined with the match grade trigger, which allowed me to spam fire the hell out of it. They did something really cool with dual wielding this year, which is that you can now toggle it on and off depending on your situation. I'm not sure why they never did this sooner, but it's awesome, and I love to see stuff like that. Next is the other handgun, the Coda 9, which is the Cap 40 from Black Ops 2. This thing also felt great. Using the smallest mag, which was 15 rounds, was often only enough to get one person in core. So that's an attachment I'd take on and off depending on if I was playing core or hardcore. The last secondary, and only launcher, is the ARC M1, or the Spartan Laser as me and the guys called it. It functioned in much the same way. You could fire 3 times before needing to reload. Unlike the actual Spartan Laser, the ARC did have a drop to it, but it was only really noticeable when shooting streaks. The splash damage is very minimal, but it's hard to complain about it not measuring up in that regard when even the grenades themselves don't. Now we can get into the primaries, starting with the assault rifles. The first one is the M15 Mod 0, which takes some inspiration from the SIG MCX Spear. This was the first gun I used, and I used it before Treyarch increased the leveling speed. This thing took me 11 hours in the fucking beta to complete. On the bright side, at least I love the gun. It feels great at any range, and it's a solid all-rounder. The next one is the MXR-17, which looks and feels like a combination of the FN Scar-17 and the R301 from Apex Legends. This was my least favorite assault rifle out of the three. The slow fire rate and capacity didn't feel worth the damage output. I think it could be fine, but it needs a bit of a buff first. Finally, we have the Peacekeeper, which returns from Black Ops 2. My buddies didn't really like this gun as much as I did. It bounced around a little and felt a little more comfortable at closer ranges, but I liked it a lot, and I didn't have too much trouble. For the submachine guns, we also have three options. The first one is the Raiden 45K, which reminded me of the CZ Scorpion Evo from Black Ops 2. My buddies hated this thing, but I thought it felt solid with the right attachment setup. I'll admit that without that, it felt a little lacking, but I wouldn't quite call it bad. Next up was the meta of the entire beta, the Dravik 45. It has a pretty unique magazine that's somewhat reminiscent of the PP19 Bison, but not exactly. This thing was very accurate at range and did very solid damage. There's not a lot to say about it other than it was clearly a standout weapon above at least the other SMGs, if not everything else. The final SMG is the Razor 9mm, which reminds me somewhat of the Vesper and Razorback from Black Ops 3. Probably more the Razorback given the name. I really like this gun, and I feel similarly about it and the Raiden, in which they felt a little rough around the edges before applying my preferred attachment setup. We got two shotguns in the beta. The first of which is the pump-action M10 Breacher, which feels reminiscent of the KRM-262 from Black Ops 3, at least in appearance. This gun has a gimmick to where it can be charged to do more damage. You charge it with the fire button, and it's too slow in my opinion. Not only that, but because it's done with the fire button, there's a bit of a trigger delay, and this makes me hate this gun, even though it's otherwise not bad and it kills at a generous range by COD shotgun standards, even without the charge. The other shotgun is the Echo 12, which is a lot like the M1216 from Black Ops 2 with its manual rotary magazine. This thing was great, and didn't have any stupid charge gimmick like the M10 Breacher. If I run overkill, a shotgun is usually my preferred secondary. Probably because I'm a simp for the original Modern Warfare 2 where shotguns were secondaries by default. The only LMG in the beta was the Mark 78. Naturally, it was kinda heavy, so the sprint to fire speed and ADS speed was pretty slow, but it was essentially a laser beam and did great damage. It's a camper's dream for sure. The only marksman rifle is the M8A1, which is not only not a DMR in any sense, but it's also locked to burst fire. At least in Black Ops 2 you got the fire selector attachment to make it full auto. Regardless, this thing was a beast and dominated at medium and longer range. And finally we have the snipers. First up is the VS Recon, which reminds me of the Black Ops 2 DSR. This thing felt pretty much perfect, and hit markering was almost non-existent if you hit them from the gooch up. You could also equip it with red dots and other low magnification optics, which I strongly prefer over scopes in standard 6v6 multiplayer. The other sniper is the XR3 Ion. This is a 3-round burst sniper that has a little bit of a trigger delay. To my surprise, this thing actually felt nice. It hit markered more often than the VS Recon, but it wasn't too bad. The delay was certainly present, but shorter than you might expect. I found it pretty pleasant to use overall. I also made sure to use it with low magnification optics, but its default scope was pretty cool looking. And that's it for the guns. There were a ton of attachments in this beta, so I'll just touch on the more interesting ones. The millimeter scanner optic returns from Black Ops 2. It sucked then, and it sucks now. It looks nice, but it has cons for ADS speed, sprint to fire speed, recoil stabilization, and gun kick. This is really bad considering a lot of the optics don't really have cons at all. And to make matters worse, you'd assume this was to balance its intended effect, but you'd be wrong. The scan not only works up to only 30 meters, but the enemies also have to be stationary. Ultimately, I don't find it worth using, especially with all the cons in a game that's so fast-paced as a whole. We also have thermal optics like the Bowen X25 IR. This is a 2x optic with some modest cons, but it works really well. It has great clarity, and I think it's fair to assume this will be most players' crutch optic. There's also the VAX Strix 6x thermal, which sucks. It works like the Black Ops 1 infrared optic where you can see highlighted players, but nothing else really appears. I don't like using thermal optics in general, but if I were to use one, this wouldn't be it. The high caliber attachment from Black Ops 3 that deals extra headshot damage returns as a barrel attachment that most guns can get. It has cons though this time, with more added recoil. The assault rifles can get 4 types of grenade launcher: standard, smoke, high explosive, and drill. To my disbelief, the standard noob tube actually is the best explosive in the game. I didn't use it much, but it was pretty effective, even in core. The smoke launcher is probably good when paired with thermals, but I never tried the combo. The smoke has a small delay between getting settled on the ground and producing smoke, which is a little annoying. I've got some funny direct impact kills with it at least.
Friendly down.
The HE launcher just fires a stronger grenade than the standard, but it has a delay. The drill charge tube works and sounds exactly like the one from MW2 2022. I hope the full game has regular smokes and drills, because having them exclusive to launchers is kinda weird. Tac stance, or point shooting if you're not retarded, returns as an attachment known as the Adaptive Tactical Laser. I hate that it's a toggleable attachment that replaces your fire selector rather than just a toggleable feature with its own dedicated button like in MW3 2023. And while it is toggleable, unlike MW2 2022's, it's not pinpoint like MW2 2022's, and didn't seem anywhere near as good as it was in MW3 2023, so it's kind of the worst of both worlds. Lucky us, we also get a laser that magically increases damage range and recoil stabilization with the 3 milliwatt motion strike laser. I hate attachments like this that don't make any logical sense whatsoever. The guns all get rapid fire attachment with different names as well, but the only one that seemed to make any noticeable difference at all is the match grade trigger for the Jaeger 45 handgun. The Kepler T range holo displayed an indicator that would let you know how bad your damage falloff would be at the range you were aiming at. This optic was definitely cool and exposed some guns for their laughable optimal range, like the Raiden 45K, which had an absolutely pathetic optimal range of only 11.6 meters. The shotguns had the ability to use the Solaris Holo IR, which is a one-times holographic thermal optic. There's not a lot of reasons to have an optic on a shotgun in a COD game unless you're using slugs, but this optic seems like it would be quite overused in the full release if other weapon classes can get it. Speaking of slugs, this beta had them. They functioned as expected without too much drop. I was out sniping some guy with a legitimate sniper and scope on Toshin across the map with the Echo 12. I must have killed him like 10 times like that. I sent him a message between firefights asking if he liked my slugs, and before I knew it, spawns flipped and he came behind me and magnumed to my body. I suppose I had that coming, but it was worth it. The shotguns also got Dragon's Breath incendiary rounds. These were okay, but I didn't find any reason to use them over the standard buckshot since they were detrimental to your range. The Mark 78 LMG was able to get the parallel foregrip, which allowed you to move fast while aiming, except aiming was more of just an improved hipfire. And that's it for the more interesting attachments, but I should add that I'm really more of an iron sights guy, and yet this game has some fantastic optics, which is nice for a reason I'm about to get to. Now, as for the gunsmith as a whole, let me talk about the cosmetic side first. There were no camos in the beta, but the UI clearly shows you'll get to apply camos, stickers, charms, and large decals to your guns. I haven't liked the way COD applies their camos in a long time, so I don't really use them. I use stickers sometimes, if the predetermined spots they've chosen make sense in any way. Charms are gay, and decals usually look stupid, so I never use those. But this year, customizable reticles are back, which was also the case in BO6. And I do like to unlock those just for fun, so it's nice that the optics are nice and clean this year. As for this section of the gunsmith that really matters, the attachments, it kinda sucks. There aren't a lot of cons, so a lot of your choices don't feel that meaningful. Everything is also pretty cookie cutter, and every gun has the same attachments that all do the same things as all the others. As a result, I find attachments that fit my playstyle, and I fit every single gun in the entire game with the same set of attachments that all do the same thing. They're all set to increase ADS, sprint to fire speed, or both, and without cons. In all honesty, it commits the ultimate gaming sin, which is that it's boring. I may have some very small gripes with Modern Warfare 2019's Gunsmith, which introduced the system as it's now known to the series, but it was by far the most interesting and varied. Every weapon felt like it had attachments tailor-made for them, and they were largely realistic and grounded, which appeals to a lot of gun autists such as myself. I, to this day, still watch GunTubers who talk about 2019's Gunsmith and gunplay because, despite not being perfect, overall, it was exceptional. So exceptional that Battlefield 6 has done their best to copy it, and they're not the first. I can hardly blame them because it's awesome at its core. But the guns are the real stars of any shooter. The operator you play as is just what other players see, but what you see, feel, and use as a vehicle for all your gameplay is your weapon. It's truly how you represent your playstyle and identity in a shooter. If your weapon customization is boring, if your gunplay is substandard, if your sound design is lacking, in the big 2025, your shooter at its core is boring. That's not to say that it applies in every case to every game, but for any shooter of this type, it's the gospel truth. Vince Zampella knows this truth well, and it's reflected in his work not only on Battlefield 6, but on COD 4, Modern Warfare 2, and Titanfall. If there are any FPS devs out there listening to this, know that your gunplay and your weapon identity needs to be nothing less than superb to compete. Anything less will not suffice. And for our final main topic, let's talk about the zombies. We got a small slice of what I believe is going to be a sequel to Black Ops 2 Transit. We were relegated to Van Dorn Farm, which, fittingly, feels extremely similar to the original farm from the original Transit, which was also playable as a standalone map. Just like Black Ops 6 and Cold War, you spawn in with a custom weapon. Some players like this, others prefer starting with a handgun like classic COD did. I kind of like what Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare did, where you could customize all the guns, and when you buy them, they'd have your setup on them, but you started with a pistol. I think it's a happy medium. You also get a choice of the same recycled field upgrades that they've been using for way too long, and a pack of gobblegums that are mostly carryovers from Black Ops 6, so I won't go into those too much. You start off by shooting Gross off of the power pump within a time limit. Once that's done, you can buy the barn door and go upstairs and turn the power on. This allows you to activate the perk machines, pack-a-punch, weapon upgrade station, and the trap. The perk machines consist of Melee Macchiato and the Wonder Fizz, which lets you get any perk you want. It completely invalidates the former, so I wonder if it's just there in the beta for you to try out all the perks. In the early access beta, before it opened, you can only get to level 20, so some guns were locked. The level cap was increased to 30 for the open beta. During that early access period though, the mystery box let you get weapons that weren't available yet, which is pretty sweet. The weapon I had the most success with was the Mark 78 LMG using the parallel grip that I mentioned earlier. I also used the Echo 12 shotgun a lot, which was very solid. I leveled both snipers here a bit, and they were both terrible. The VS Recon was slow and did pitiful damage outside of headshots. At least packing it gave it a super tight hipfire. The XR3 Ion was a joke. Not only was its damage output utter dog shit, but packing it actually decreased its mag capacity, which I thought was a cruel joke. The trap is extremely overpowered. It's a spinning set of blades with megaphones and a baby doll in the middle. All the zombies get attracted to it and die instantly. The baby was kind of odd and unsettling to me, and my buddy said that too, so I know it's not just me. There's also the fireworks ammo mod that I'm told was also in Black Ops 3, but I don't remember it. Despite my name obviously stemming from the zombies perk Speed Cola, I've always been more of a multiplayer guy when it comes to COD. And I also hated Shadows of Evil and Black Ops 3, so I never bought any of its DLC. I know it's popular to glaze that game, but that map and that multiplayer were just not for me. Fireworks would activate above a zombie's head and shoot at other zombies, which I thought was pretty cool. They also made the shock rounds not suck finally. Previously, they would make the zombie activated on shock in place, and you couldn't kill it or move through it, so there were times you would get stuck and killed. Now, it activates as an area of effect wave on the ground that affects any zombies that enter it. Much better. I should probably add that wall jumping in zombies is awesome. There were definitely a few times where I saved myself from getting cornered by wall jumping over a train. The armor system from MW3 2023 and Black Ops 6 returns. I'm still undecided whether this is a good addition or just an annoying extra step. Black Ops 6's Liberty Falls and Terminus had the vermin enemies that replaced the traditional dog rounds. And here we have the Ravagers, which make some cool sounds and eat up ground loot like salvage. There are also the Zursa, which are these huge grizzly bears with growths all over them that act as critical hit areas that stun them when they pop. The downside is that when you do that, the growths drop on the ground and hurt you within an area of effect. The Zursa were very strong and could kill you with a single hit or two. I also saw some Doppelgast at higher rounds, but I thought they were far easier to deal with than the Zursa, and I don't even think one hit me ever. Zombies generally was on the easy side. I was able to get to round 45 on my second attempt solo casually without any serious effort. The last thing on zombies is that it gives you the option to extract at certain rounds, but it was broken and it never spawned anything when we tried it, and we had to just kill ourselves or leave the game. Alright, so that was the Call of Duty Black Ops 7 beta. While I generally enjoyed the beta and felt it was a solid experience with some kinks that could be easily ironed out, I don't think I can give COD my money this time. I feel that they've stabbed their fans in the back too many times in recent years to the point where the trust is just not there. And while Treyarch's Twitter during the duration of the beta indicates that they are in fact listening closely by adding the EOMM free playlists in the beta, promising for it to be the default in the full release, addressing the complaints about the doors, removing carry forward skins, which unfortunately also meant Black Ops 6 guns were left behind. This isn't due to sudden care for their audience. Activision is as scummy as it gets. This is due to the fact that Battlefield is bringing real competition this time around, which is good for us as the consumers, but I'll need more convincing before I even consider getting Black Ops 7. That being said, I still haven't bought Battlefield 6, and I'm not sure if I will. I'm currently either getting Battlefield 6 or neither of these games. I'm undecided, and I'm not really in a rush. Call of Duty has really lost its way, and it's been that way for quite some time now, with small glimmers of hope in between. As a longtime fan, I do truly hope they get it together, but I can't say for certain if that day will ever come. So what do you think? Did you play it? Did you get Battlefield 6? Are you getting this instead? Maybe both, maybe neither. Waiting to see how they handle the full release. I no-lifed the fuck out of this game, clocking in at 34 hours in a week with very little sleep, and I wrote this long 23-page script to try and give you the most informed decision possible. I mean, as we speak right now, I haven't slept at all. I've I made sure to stay up and work on it all day and all night just to make sure that I could get it out. I know money is tight for a lot of us these days, so I hope this helped you decide whether or not this might be worth your $70. You can see some of my beta stats here that show I'm at the top 1 and 2% of everyone who played the beta, and I did that because, unlike so many other devs, I love gaming and I care about those who share this hobby with me. I've never asked this before, but if you could drop a like and a comment, even a dislike if you prefer, I'd appreciate it. This video and my Battlefield beta video were, for obvious reasons, on a strict time limit, so I had to focus on the informative more so than the entertainment. But I've got some reviews of full games coming out very soon where there will be a better balance. I'm going to cover all genres and all platforms, new and old, so I hope you subscribe and stick around and see what I have cooking. Thank you very much if you made it this far, and I hope to see you again on the next one.